Now, to discuss the constitutional implications of the prolonged absence of the deputy governor in that state, we are now being joined by a constitutional lawyer who is Akugbe Osayande. Thank you so much for joining us on the news tonight.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you've heard the APC speak about the constitution and what it says. You are the lawyer. In the eyes of the law, the state governor has been absent from office the deputy governor of the state has been out of office for over 8 months. In the eyes of the law, is the governor and government of Taraba State breaking the law?
It's, you know why I had to do that?
Yes.
It is because we are talking on a very, very sensitive issue. Sensitive in the Nigerian space because where we have allowed the rule of law to take the back seat in our national life, in the outlook of the Nigerian governing space. So when we are talking, oftentimes we are very, very sentimental. One will say, oh, somebody is sick, and you are talking bad about the person. The Constitution, Section 189, is very, very clear what should have happened. But if you also look at the provision of the Constitution, it's clear to the governor who appoints the deputy governor. It is his executive council that is saddled with the responsibility of declaring that the deputy governor or the governor, either of them, is incapacitated by ill health and therefore not able to carry on with the function of his office. Now, that is the state of the law. And the deputy governor that is expected to be, whose issue has come in this circumstance, is the appointee of the governor. So the law expected that our governors or the state functionaries, they should be statesmen. They should represent us to uphold the law, because they hold those offices on our behalf, and therefore they should give effect to those laws. But by the signals that you hear from Taraba, the balancing of ethnic issues, the governor is from the south, this one is a Christian, this is the other one. Meanwhile, if you see the emblem of justice, the statute, it is a lady that is blindfolded. Is not supposed to see anybody. Is not supposed to see any condition, whether what is important is the functionality of the person who is occupying the office.
Right. In other words, in Nigeria, justice is not blindfolded. All the sentiments that you've just reeled out always play out. Now, the section 189 of the 1999 Constitution that you talked about earlier says the governor or deputy governor shall cease to hold office if, by a resolution of 2/3 of all members of the Executive Council of State, based on a medical panel certification that there is infirmity of body and mind on the part of the person in question, whether it be the governor or deputy governor. And like you've said, that section of the law has been set aside. And since that's the case, what are the options before maybe the State Assembly, the State House of Assembly, or even the governor? In this case, since the deputy governor has been away for as long as 8 months, and is that long enough for action to be taken?
Ordinarily, when you look at the Constitution talk of incapacitation. And I try to check what is incapacitation.
Right.
It is, the interpretation law unfortunately did not define when a person has that permanent incapacity, because that is ordinarily where we would have run to say the definitional legal instrument for Nigeria. So it leaves the whole place open, sadly, to the discretion. Because, you know, what I started with, I said it is the governor, because the State Executive Council that is to take that action, They are appointees of the governor.
Yeah, and they say they don't even agree that the deputy governor's condition is critical.
It's critical.
Yeah.
So they said he is recovering for how many months? So while it is perhaps maybe as the amendment is being in the works of the Constitution, they should be able to tell us that if somebody has not been able to function for this period, then he should be declared as not being able to function in his office. And it is ordinarily very, very simple. If you have been absent from an office, Nigeria should now begin to ask whether we need the office of a deputy governor with all the razzmatazz, with all the state funds that goes into that office, that somebody can occupy it for 8 months and he does not function, the state does not feel the impact that there is such vacuum. Then we now begin to ask, do we really need a deputy governor?
That's my question. That's my next question. But this is not the first time we are seeing a vacuum, so to say, in Taraba State. Remember the Suntai case?
Yes.
In that instance, it was the governor himself. But I was going to ask you, on your last point. In Nigeria, we often see the offices of the deputy governors or the vice presidents almost as ceremonial or inconsequential, like political spare tires. Perhaps, do you think this is a fault of the Constitution itself? Or is it the fault of the kind of politics we play in the country? Does the Constitution recognize the office of the deputy governor and the vice president as so important?
Thank you very much. It is the kind of politics that we play in Nigeria. It is that constitutionally, I remember one of the questions I answered some years back, that in comparative constitutional law, that the failure of African system, it is because we have emperors and not constitutional leaders. So when the governors that we have, the president that we have, even the Constitution made provision for the constitutional functions of the vice president. The case of the deputy governor is worse. There are no constitutional function given to any deputy governor. If you read the Constitution barely says that the deputy governor shall perform all such functions as the governor will ask him to do. But when you go to the place, even in the vice president, in whose the office has constitutional function, it is charge of the economy, and yet the vice president is still marginalized. So it is a complex African situation. Those kingship things that we came from. In Africa, we used to have kings, emperors. Yes. They are the ones that we now have in our constitutional governments, and that is what is the problem.
So what you're saying is culture will eat constitutionality or rule of law for breakfast at any time within in this environment. Yes. Now, back to the issue of what options lay before the governor. What can he do now to save the situation? And there are allegations too that the deputy chief of staff, to the governor has been posted to the office of the deputy governor, and they're saying that the governor is trying to run the deputy governor's office by proxy. What's wrong with that posting? It is the delicate extra-legal balancing that they are doing in Taraba that you are seeing the manifestations. I have told people, if we took notice in our national life of what Yaradua met with the main thrust of his presidency was the rule of law. If we make the rule of law the fulcrum of our national life, most of these things, they will become very, very easy. In other climes, people operate their life on the basis of the rule of law. Yeah. You have a checklist of whatever you are doing on the basis of rules. But in Nigeria,
we are drifting terribly, terribly into the rule of influence and not law.
Well, it looks like we'll have to live with
that.
that.
But you said
yes.
To answer the question, that is if the public space in Taraba were to be vibrant and not to mundane sentiments, what would have happened is that there is a public interest litigation to say that if this person, the court should now determine to say in the absence of this body playing their role, then there can be some measure of legal action to prompt the governor. After all, of course, if in the Sutai time, they answered it in a lot of topsy-turvy legal thing. At some point by impeachment of the deputy governor, who would have stepped into Suntai's place, putting another person who was now acting governor. It has always been very, very complex situation.
Until the Supreme Court had to rule on the issue.
Yes.
Akugbe Osayande is a constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Newsnight will see how things pan out in Taraba State.